What's up, guys? Today we're going to be covering the imperfect subjunctive. If you haven't already had enough subjunctive in your life, then you will now. So, it's not too bad if you follow the rules. So, I'm going to lay out the rules for you, and basically, why do we use the imperfect subjunctive? It's pretty simple. We're going to use our prior knowledge to be able to kind of understand the reasons why we use the imperfect subjunctive. And we actually form the imperfect subjunctive by going to the preterite first. So a lot of this is prior knowledge mixed in with a lot of new stuff as well. Okay? But the easy way to remember the imperfect subjunctive, some people even call it the past subjunctive. Like, I call it the past subjunctive because it's easier for me. But we can remember it as Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga's endings. Okay, you might have heard that before last year. I don't know if you got to the imperfect subjunctive, but there is definitely a reason why we call it Lady Gaga endings. And we'll get to that later. I can feel McNeil cringing as I'm doing this. All right, so the imperfect subjunctive. We already know that the subjunctive is used in weirdo. And most recently, we did adjective clauses. So when a noun exists or doesn't exist, we have to see if we're going to use the subjunctive there as well. But, in weirdo, we have the wish, the will, emotion, and personal expressions, doubt, and ohala. So we already know that the subjunctive is used in weirdo. And what we've seen so far, for an example, I guess, we could write down an example of like espero que tu vayas al cine. So if I say espero que vayas al cine, then we have weirdo here. Hope, that's in the E in weirdo, emotion, right? So I hope that you go, right? So then the subjunctive is vayas, right? Because espero is in weirdo, weirdo triggers the subjunctive, okay? So the same exact way that this is used, the past subjunctive, the imperfect subjunctive, Lady Gaga endings, whatever you want to call it, the same way that you see the weirdo used here, you're going to use it in the past subjunctive. Your main clause is just going to be in the preterite or the imperfect. So our main clause is right here. We call this our MC. Right? If this is going to be in the preterite or the imperfect, then your subordinate clause is going to be in the past subjunctive. It's basically as simple as that. I mean, I can say it's as simple as possible, but we should definitely go over some examples as well. But yeah, cool. So, espero que tu vayas al cine. Let's write this down though. So the same way that we use the present subjunctive is the way we will use the past subjunctive. In noun clauses with weirdo in main clause. When main clause is conjugated in the preterite or the imperfect. I feel like that could have been in less words, but I guess that's what we're going to have to use. So I could say something like, if I was going to use this exact same sentence and just put it down here below, and I was going to say something like esperaba. Right, there wasn't a beginning or end to it, so I'm using the imperfect. So if I had this, we know that this is, well, it's a hope still, but it's in the past. So this is in the imperfect, which is a past tense in Spanish, as we know. So we have a past tense in Spanish, but it's still weirdo. The E, right? If it's still weirdo, right? I'm still gonna have a K because it's still a noun clause. Okay. Blank ear al cine. Oops. So the way that we come to the conjugations is a little weird. I told you that we have to go to the preterite already. So you remember the preterite of ear, it's really weird. It's irregular and it's the same as ser. Give you a second to think about it. It's fui. Fuiste. It's an I. Fue. Fuimos. Fuistes. Fueron. So, what you gotta do is you go to this third person singular. All the other conjugations in the preterite don't matter. You take this third person singular, fueron. Your first rule, drop the ron. Adios, Ron. And then add Lady Gaga endings. Right? As we heard earlier. Alright, it's a little dumb, but that's alright. So you add ra, ras, ra endings. Ra, ras, ra, ramos, right? Señor Tremblay is being Lady Gaga today. So ra, ras, ra, ramos, rice, ron. Crazy, right? There's a little star here, and we'll get to that later. Okay, I'll put a star over the nosotros form because there's this weird accent that always happens in the nosotros form in the past subjunctive. I do not know why. It's probably phonetic reasons, right? But we'll get to that. So, yeah, that's how we're going to conjugate it. So your subject pronouns, like this all has to go with your subject pronouns. So the bottom endings, the ra, ras, ra endings that you're adding to the fue here, right? That's going to be with your subject pronouns. So to conjugate ear, it's going to be fuera, fueras, fuera, fuéramos, fuerais, and fueron. It's really weird. If you are saying this is really odd, you've never seen this before, or this is out there, then you're right, because it is weird. The way that it's conjugated, you're going to the preterite, third person plural, dropping the ron, adding Lady Gaga endings. It's just odd, but that's the way that you conjugate it. So up here, if we look at the to form, we're going to use this one. So this goes all the way up here. And it's going to be fueras. Okay? So, esperaba que tu fueras al cine. Okay? I hoped that you would go to the movie theater. So, instead of saying I hope that you go to the movie theater, or that you would go to the movie theater, it's I hope that you would have gone to the movie theater. Okay? It's in the past. I hoped. Excuse me. Okay? So, to lay this out, how to conjugate. Yeah. Conjugate. Step 1, go to third person plural of preterite. 2, drop the ron. 3, add Lady Gaga endings. I won't put her on again, don't worry. Add Lady Gaga. Senor Tremblay is hilarious. All right, so yeah, the star. I told you I'd get back to the star, right? So it's really odd, but the vowel before the Ramos in nosotros of imperfect subjunctive has an accent. So let's edit this over here. We're gonna like kind of put like a ghost accent because we don't have it on there yet, but we will put a real accent on this one over here for the conjugation of ear. Right, it's like a ghost accent when it's all alone, when you're just talking about the endings, because you don't have an actual vowel placed there yet, but it does exist. Yeah, so that's how you form it and that's how you use it. So you're going to be basically using exactly what you used before with noun clauses. I'm not going to quiz you on adjective clauses with this. I'm just going to go over noun clauses. So if you know your weirdo, then you should be good, right? If you know your certainty, you know that that's going to be indicative. And if you remember, the preterite and the imperfect are forms of the indicative. So if you have era verdad que, just as an example, I'm just going to put in brackets. So for an example, so I said era verdad que, ir al cine. Now, if we have verdad, we know that this is certainty. Certainty equals indicative. Right? You know this. I mean, you should automatically think, if you see S verdad que, you should automatically think indicative. So if that's going to be the indicative, then you know that ir has to be conjugated in the indicative. But because this is in the past, we still need to conjugate ir in the past. Okay? But we're not going to be using the past subjunctive, the imperfect subjunctive, because there's no trigger for the imperfect subjunctive. So this, if it was the to form again still, it'd be fuiste. Right? It was true that you went to the movie theater. Now this is the indicative. This fuiste is in the indicative because era verdad is certainty. Certainty equals a trigger for the indicative. Okay? So let's go over some questions to get us a little bit more accustomed or used to this. So there's like this cool Historia de la Conquista, so like conquista from Spain going over abroad to Latin America. So we can just label this like Historia de la Conquista. So it says Bernal. So Bernal Diaz del Castillo escribió uno de los libros más interesantes sobre la conquista de Mexico. And this goes on to talk about it. So we're going to be filling in the blanks with imperfect subjunctive. So the first one says era impresionante que la capital ser tan enorme. Number 2, era increíble que los edificios de la ciudad. Gonna have to move these. Tener torres tan altas. 3. No podíamos creer que la gente poder navegar. And then the last one, 4, it's going to be nos parecía interesante que los indígenas saber cultivar. And then finally, we'll say, es cierto que los indígenas ser inteligentes. Okay? So at this point, you would have already conjugated these, so I can go over this with you. So, era impresionante que la capital fuera, I'm going to use a different color. Fuera tan enorme. Es increíble que los edificios de la ciudad tuviera. Yeah. Los edificios tuvieran. Because edificios is plural. No podíamos creer que la gente pudiera. Remember, this is yuki in the preterite, so it's an irregular verb, just like tener. Los indígenas supiera, it's irregular as well. Supieran, because indígenas is plural. And then es cierto que los indígenas eran. Because es cierto is going to trigger the indicative. And this is in the imperfect because it is a description. If they were intelligent, then that's a description. A description is always going to be in the imperfect. Yeah, so the last thing I just want to do is I want to go over like one of these. So I'll take tener, for instance, and I'm going to go down here and I'm going to conjugate that in the past subjunctive for you. So tener, if we were going to put this in the preterite, then all we really need is tuviera. No, that's the imperfect subjunctive. Then you're trying to play. Good job. Tuvieron, right? So the reason it's like this is it's irregular in the preterite. The irregular stem, or the key stem, that's what I called it when I was teaching you guys, is tuv. You have to put the irregular endings on it, okay? And that's the ron at the end, well, eron. Okay? So now we take this, we drop the ron, tuvier, I guess, and then we add the Lady Gaga endings. So tener in the imperfect subjunctive becomes tuviera, tuvieras, tuviera, tuvieramos, with that accent over the vowel before the ramos, tuvierais, and tuvieron, an at the end. Make sure that you don't forget that because people do that all the time. So yeah, that is your imperfect subjunctive. I hope that you got something out of it, and it really does take practice. So what I'll do is I'm going to give you an Konogemos website to go on, so then you can go in and you can practice it and you can get better for the quiz. This is not going to be on your test. Your test is coming up. This is just going to be a quiz. All right. So I hope that this was somehow helpful for you. And if you have any questions, please email me. All right, adios, chicos.